Hello everyone and welcome to a tutorial by Slicenfeld Studios. I recently made this video on TikTok. It's a video of Rasengan from Naruto, and I made the Rasengan Shurikan as well. I'm probably not pronouncing them correctly, but in this tutorial I'm going to teach you how to create both of those effects with two free programs, Film Express and Blender 3D. So to start off, we just click in. This is the regular open default setup for Blender. We can delete the main cube by hitting X and then left clicking, and then we go to Add Mesh UV Sphere, and this is going to be the start of our particle system that will make the first layer of the Rasengan. We go over here to the Particles tab and hit plus, and we put the emission to 2500. We can also go to the wireframe viewport so we can see the particles on the inside. Before we start the simulation, we need to go down to our our field weights tab and change the gravity to 0. Now with our cursor in the center of the grid, if it's not, hit Shift and S and put your cursor to grid. Then hit Shift A. That'll bring up this menu. You can also get that by going to Add. And we're going to do a force field, and just a regular force. And we're going to go to this icon right here, the physics, and we're going to change the strength to -4. Now if we take a look at this just by hitting play, this is what it looks like. Alright, so for me the balls are a little bit too big. They're not going to look like this when we render them. It's just for viewport settings, but it's easier to see them if we change this a little bit. So if we go to viewport display and change the size to be a little bit smaller, and I think I'm going to double the particles, so make it 5000. Now we hit play, and this is what it looks like. So now automatically when you get the new version of Blender, it's going to be on Eevee rendering, which is fine. I used cycles when I was testing it out, and you get the same basic effect. It's just it renders a lot faster if you use Eevee. So what you're going to want to do is click over here and hit Shift A to add a mesh, and we're going to add an icosphere. We're going to come down here and click on this tab right here and change the subdivisions to 1, because we're going to be using this object as our particle. It's going to replace all those little dots as the particles. We want as few vertices as possible. So what we're going to do now is we click on the sphere, which we are going to name Particle Emitter. Then we are going to go to our Particle tab, go down to Render, and over here I'm going to click Object. Down here I click this little eyedropper and click on the icosphere, so that'll select it. We could have also just clicked this and selected it from the drop down menu. Now when I hit play, it's going to be rendering those icospheres, which is also big, so we're going to change the scale down, something like that. Now we're going to start setting up the render. Just remember to save your file, because sometimes Blender crashes and you lose all your work. So I'm going to save this one as Rasengan tutorial. Alright, now I'm going to go to my rendered button right here. I'm going to go to film and hit transparent under this drop down and click this button right here. So now this looks nothing like what we're going for, but what we have to do is go to the particle settings again and uncheck this box that says show emitter. and that doesn't change anything because we have to go to this object. You can't see what I'm selecting right now because I have this button turned off. If you turn it on and off, it shows the render display. So I'll just leave it on for now, but what we have to do is go to the material, hit new, and change it to transparent. And then that doesn't really make it see-through like it should be, but we go to here, select alpha blend from this drop-down blend mode menu, and that makes the circle itself transparent so we can only see the particles. So now this is kind of what it looks like. If we click here to go to the beginning and hit the space bar to hit play, this is what it's looking like right now. So what we want to do is we want to click on this icosphere right here, and we're under the material tab, hit new. We're going to change it from principled material to an emission material and give it a slightly blue color and change the strength to 12. And now this makes the particles light. I still think they're a little bit big, so I'm going to go back to the particles tab and change the scale down a little bit like that. So now this is what we have right now, and this could be good, but what we could do also is add a turbulence to it, which just gives it a more random effect, which is really helpful. So we hit Shift and S because our cursor is not in the center of the grid, so we hit cursor to grid. Let me turn this on. So now cursor to grid, sorry, cursor to world origin, my bad. I messed up before on that too. So now what we do is we hit Shift A, add another force field, and add a turbulence force field. Now with this one, when we go to the force field settings, we're going to set it to a strength of about 4. If we go back to the beginning, let's turn this off and go to rendered, and we hit play. This is what it looks like now. It gives it a more organic look. That's probably a little bit too much, so I'll set it to 1.5. Alright, so now it just gives it a little bit more of an organic look. I mean, I don't know too much about chakra, but it's not a uniform, kind of thing. It's a natural flowing energy, so this just gives it a more organic kind of look and feel. Now what we want to do is we want to right click this object and go to, just hit G to grab it and move it away, like off the screen. And what we want to do is we go view and viewport front. Then we go view, align view, and align active camera to view. And this puts your camera right in front of the circle and right in front of our Rasengan. Now if we go to our camera tab, output tab, we want to change this to be a square because we don't need all these extra pixels. So we can set it to 1080 by 1080. And then we right click the camera outline box here, hit G, and then you click your middle mouse button and you push your mouse up, and that brings the camera closer to the Rasengan. There we go. So now we have our camera close by, and it's not very centered, so what I can do is I hit G to grab it and move it around, and I hit X to move it only along the X-axis. And now I put it right in the center. So if I hit 0, that'll take me to my camera view, or I could just go view, viewpoint camera, and that'll do the same thing. So view, viewpoint camera, it'll take me there. Now I'm in render. Let me just turn this off. And if I go to my, bloom settings, turn that on, it gives a slight glow to the particles, which is helpful. We don't need, we could, take this thing up like quite a bit, make it really bright, but we don't need to at the moment because we're going to add these effects in later in post-production in HitFilm Express. So we have this here right now, And what we want to do is set an output folder. Your automatic would be TMP, and that'll make one on your computer, which is kind of difficult to find, but I suggest you just make a new one. So what we're going to do, just also guys, remember to save constantly throughout your process. So we are done making the first part of the Rasengan, which is this right here. So now I'm going to just use this automatic file because I have a shortcut on my desktop that leads straight to it, which I recommend you make. But you go here, make sure all your settings are set up. You don't have to have too many settings, samples, because it's a light emitting scene. If you had shading and all that kind of stuff, you'd want to keep them up. So I'm going to set these to 32, and then I'm going to go render and render animation. And then I will come back when it is finished. Alright guys, I'm back. That took about 2 minutes on my computer. So we can just save this and exit out. Now I'm going to open HitFilm Express. And I am going to open a new file, set it to 1080p. And that's going to be my starting resolution. Not now. Alright. 1080p 24 FPS is usually what I start and do my videos in, so I'll be going with that. It could be whatever you want, but I just prefer 1080p because that's standard definition on my computer. So now, when you rendered the video or your scene from Blender, you rendered it out as an image sequence. So it's not a video file, it's a whole bunch of pictures in your TMP folder that you set the output to. And by the way, a little info on the TMP folder is that if you render another scene at that same location, it will overwrite your previous render if you don't rename the photos when you render them. But you can also just create a different render location so that it doesn't do that. So I'm going to go import image sequence, and I'm going to go to Acer and just go to TMP and select folder. So here it is right here. Now with most other media files you can just drag and drop them in, but if I had selected all those photos and dragged them in here, it'll import every single one of them as a separate file and not as an image sequence, which is not what we want. So now I'm going to right click this and make composite shot. So I'll call this Rasengan. Custom 1080 by 1080, 24 FPS, everything's great. Alright, so here it is. Here's our timeline, and I hit the spacebar to play, and this is what it looks like. It doesn't look very good when it's playing because the options I've had, playback quality is quick, playback resolution is quarter, so I can have a 24 FPS playback, but when I pause it, it's fine. So now what you want to do is you hit new layer, plane, make sure it's black, and you can just call this your background. Now it's going to go on top of your original Rasengan. Your Rasengan file is going to be called TMP, so just drag the background to the bottom. Let's hit F2 or just right click and rename. To rename this to base Rasengan. So now this is what it looks like so far. And if you want to have full resolution playback, you can come up here and click this play button with the circle around it, and that'll create a cache on your computer with the full resolution. So this is what's cached right here, and then you can hit pause whenever you want or stop, and then it'll play it back in proper full resolution, and then once it cuts out, it'll go back to the kind of terrible resolution and playback. So now what you want to do in the next step is go to Effects, go to Distort, and go to Bulge. Now you want to put this on your base Rasengan, and that'll do that to it, which is not what we're going to end up keeping. Now, right click your base Rasengan and hit duplicate. So now you have two. So now you just F2 or rename, and we're going to go add this to it, say front. And now let's just go to the base one. I actually didn't even need to put this on here. So delete that. And then we're going to click the top front, and we're going to go to effects, click on the bulge. Actually, let's turn this one off for now. And we're going, no, I need it on. And turn down the radius. So now that's right there. Let's move it down a little bit. Put it right in the middle. And we're going to take our bulge and just kind of bring it up a little bit to give it kind of some dimension. So put it like a 1.2. And then just click it right here and drag it a little bit back. So it starts up a little bit later than the first one. All right, we're going to duplicate our base Rasengan again by right clicking and hitting duplicate or Control D. There's the shortcuts for these buttons right here. And we're going to rename this outer layer. And what we are going to do, we're going to put it on the top, and we're going to turn these other ones off for right now. And we're going to go to our distort, and we're going to get bulge again, and we're going to put that on. Now we go to controls, and actually let's turn this on just to size it up like we did with the other one. We're going to bring that down to the regular size. We can turn it off again. Now what we want to do is turn on the bulge and bring it up to something like that. And turn up the plateau, I think that's how you pronounce it, to something like that. And we've got to put this down to kind of the center. So what we're wanting to get is like this little fine line on the outside, but that's not, like this center part is looking quite gross. So we're going to bring up the radius a little bit, and we're going to go and we're going to mask this. So we're going to click this circle mask right here, and we're going to click and drag, and that's what we have right there. Now we're going to hit the invert button, and that gives us this. So we can click this quickly and just bring this down a little bit to bring back some of those little bits on the edges, because we don't want too much gone. And now what we're going to do is we're going to add a glow. So we're going to hit the top and type in glow. Fast way to get our presets, and just put it on top of here. Go back to controls and bring up the intensity and turn down the threshold and set the blend mode to add. So now you can kind of see it working there. We're going to turn down the radius. We're going to leave it something like that. You can click this to bring that back. So now we turn these other two on. This is what we have so far. We did bring the playhead back to the start of the timeline, hit the space bar. Actually, let me get a preview like that. So this is what we have so far, and it's not looking too good, but the next few steps will be a major help with something like that. Alright, let's see how it starts up like that. So that's what we have so far. But it starts like that. And when Naruto makes his Rasengan, it doesn't start at the original size. It starts small. So what we are going to do is we are going to move this back to here, just so it can be in line with that, because we don't want the outside starting before the inside starts. And we're going to go to the first one that starts. We're going to go to right here. We're going to hit transform and click this circle near the scale, and that'll put a keyframe right here. We'll move the playhead all the way back to the beginning of the timeline and change the percent of scale to 0. Let me just type it in. Now, if we hit the play button, or let's do the display, it'll go up like that. And something else you can do is you can hit this button right here It looks like a little meteor flying into the sky, but they fly down. But anyway, that'll bring up the motion blur. So if you zoom in here, you turn it on and off, you can see that it just helps give that like extra little bit, you know. And that's always nice. So we can zoom out. You know, if you ever get to where your screen's right here and you can't see it properly, just come down here and click scale to fit, and that'll make it fit your entire screen. So we'll go back to our regular cursor. And now what we want to do is we want to add our main glow. So we don't want to add the same glow effect to every single layer. So we're going to add new layer and a grade layer. Now grade layer affects everything underneath it. So what we're going to do, we're going to rename this to glow. And we're going to go to our effects, add another glow onto this. Now we're going to bring up the intensity. We're going to change this from screen to add. We're going to take down the threshold. The threshold is basically what part of it is going to glow. So the higher it is, only the bright parts glow and the less bright parts don't glow. Bring it down, everything glows. We're going to turn up the radius. And now we're going to go to our per channel intensity. Turn the red down. Turn the blue up. And then let's see, we're going to change the radius a little bit. Let's take the intensity down. Take the radius down. And bring up the reds a little bit. Take down the blue. And now let's duplicate this. So right click, duplicate. And that's not what we want, but we're going to bring up the radius on this one. And then, because it doesn't look too full right now, so what we're going to do is we're going to take all of these 3 that we have right here. We're going to hit Control and D, or right click and duplicate, and that'll make another set of them. And then we are going to take one of these corners right here, it doesn't matter which one, and bring it to the opposite side of the screen. And that just fills it up. So I can toggle them off and on here, and that really fills up the Rasengan a bit more, and it gives a little bit more glow. And if you want to fill it up even more, what you can do is you can duplicate them again and then just do it the other way. And if it's not lined up correctly, just line it up. So there you go. And now this is your Rasengan. Now, it looks like it's taking too long to come up. When I did it in my video, it came up a lot faster. So what you can do for that is you just bring these guys a little bit closer. And you can like offset them a little bit, put some in front of the others and some behind, just to give them that randomness. And now that's your Rasengan. So, also remember to save your project. Okay, so what you're going to want to do now is you go to export right here, and then you hit this export button. And then you hit contents, and that'll start this right here. I can just delete, oopsie, I can delete this one and hit start exporting. And now this will create a custom export folder for your HitFilm Express exports. Unless you already have the program, then it will already be there. And this is how far it's rendered, and I will come back once this has finished rendering to make the Rasengan Shurikan and to composite this onto my footage that I did in the original video. Alright, now that our video is finished rendering, we're going to go back to edit. We're going to go to media, and we're going to import our footage. So I'm going to go to media. I'm going to go to my hard drive or my memory card. I'm going to import my footage, which is 00014. Now I could have just dragged and dropped it in. But once it's loaded, what we're going to do is we're going to right click, make composite shot, and it's 54 seconds because I tried it multiple times, but we only need about, say, let's do 10 seconds. And then we're going to hit OK. Actually, let's name this finished product. Hit enter, and it'll open a new composite shot with the dimensions of the video you made the composite shot out of. Under here are your composite shots. So here's your Rasengan, and here's your finished product. Now what you could do is you could drag this composite shot, the Rasengan composite shot, and put it on top of your footage, and then you could do that. But the video playback will be so much slower. That's why we rendered it out. So we're going to go and we're going to import that right now. So import media. We're going to go to our desktop. We're going to go to HitFilm Exports, HitFilm Express Exports, and we're going to go to Rasengan, open. So now we can just delete this because we have it right here. And as you can see, it's playing a whole lot faster. But we can't see our video underneath. So what we're going to do is going to right click, blend mode, add. So now we can see it underneath. The part of the video that I want is right, that's the wrong one, right over here. So now we're going to set the playhead to the beginning, and we're going to put this at the right spot, like that. So now I hit play, and that's basically what we got right there. So now we have a whole bunch of things to do. So I'm going to quickly hit C to change it to the cutting cursor. Click that to cut it there. Hit V to go back to the regular one. And I'm just going to delete that. Now what we want to do is we want to make this footage look a little bit better. So I'm going to go to Effects, exit out of that, and go to Color Correction, Levels, Histogram. Drag and drop that onto there. I'm going to rename this Hand. And I am going to also add a luminance key. So that's under Keying, Luminance key. So that'll make your footage look like that. We can go to the controls, click that to turn it off for now, and then we're going to just drag this out so we can see the whole thing here. What we want to do is we want to take this middle slider and bring it up a little bit. So that'll kind of make the whole image darker and just have the hand. Then what you want to do, because there's this little bit here that if I get that out, it'll cut off too much of my hand. So I bring that out like that, and I go to my mask, and I just click around it like that, and that'll just leave that. And I go to the mask and I click this button to invert it, and then I'll just feather it a little bit. Now we're going to add a background layer like we did before in the Rasengan. Just call this background and bring that to the bottom. Now this is our footage, which is just what we want. So now we want the Rasengan to start right now. So we turn on the Rasengan again, and let's click up here to get to our regular cursor. We're going to bring it up, and we're going to scale it the right way. So go to Transform, Scale, let's set it at 150%. So about so high. And now this is okay. I mean, you could stop here, but it doesn't look good because, first of all, you know, your hand's moving and it's not following. And second of all, the light that is on your hand, or my hand, is not blue. So what we want to do here is we want to go to the hand, actually go to Effects, we're going to go to Color Correction, and we're going to add Hue, Saturation, and Lightness onto there. And then we are going to add a glow onto there. So that would be Lights and Flares, Glow. Now we are going to first go, actually we don't even need the luminance key. I used it in my first one, but I realize now it looks just fine without it. Turn off the glow for now. We're going to go to Hue and Saturation, Hue, Saturation, and Lightness, and turn the saturation all the way down. Then we're going to turn on the glow, and we're going to change screen to add. We're going to bring up the radius, Actually, keep it down. Let's change it back to screen. And we're going to go to per channel intensity and bring up the blue. Take down the red. And then we're going to take down the threshold so that kind of a whole bunch of my arm can be lit up. Turn down the intensity a little bit, bring up the radius. So now it's blue. My hand's blue. What we could do is bring a little bit of the saturation back in so that it's kind of orangish. I mean, not too much because that looks weird, but somewhere around there. So that's it so far. Now what we want to do, because it's looking okay, but it's not following the hand. So what we want to do is we can turn that off for now. Click under here, and we'll go to tracks, and we'll hit plus. Now this will change your whole layout quite a bit, but I like to do this. I click the track, and I'll drag it all the way to here, and that'll bring it back to normal. Now what you want to do is you click right here, and you take this little red square, and you drag it out, and then bring it back in a little bit. And then that will stretch the green square and the red square. Now just a basic little lesson for this. The red square is your picture. It's what the computer is looking for when you track. The green square is where the computer is looking to track it. Right, so the green square is where the computer looks for the picture. So I could make it the size of the entire screen, but the computing would be so much longer, and I don't even think that works properly. I don't know. It might crash, but it's easier just to keep your search size small and your picture small. So now what you're wanting to look for is a high contrast area, so lights and darks, with some texture in between. You know, you don't want to go for the center of your hand because then it'll be bouncing around as it tracks. So go for something like this, where if this part of the object moves, the rest of the object that you're wanting to attach your tracking object to. So say for instance I track right here on this finger. My finger could be moving when my main hand is not, so then it would mess up the track. But if this part of my hand moves, this part of my hand moves, which is what we're having the Rasengan follow. So now we're going to want to go to our tracker here, and we're going to backtrack or track back and click that button. And as you can see, it's tracking backwards. So it'll take a while, and then once it's done tracking, we're going to come back to the middle where we started and then track forward. Alright, it is done tracking. So you can see here, like at the beginning, it kind of gets all jaggedy because, you know, my hand's moving fast and it's blurry, but it actually does a pretty good job. So now we're going to click this right here and click this, and this is where we started right here. So now I'm going to click up here, get to that frame, and I'm going to track forward. Now always remember to save your project when you do this, because I have lost like 3 hours worth of work because I didn't save before, and it just ruined my day. So yeah, little bit of advice. Anyway, now that this is done, you're going to want to hit new layer and point. That'll take everything away here. It's fine. Just click this tracker again and that'll bring it back. Now you go to you go to layer, click new point and apply. And that'll take this tracking data right here and put that motion onto our new point. So we can close this and we change from layer to viewer, and that'll take us back to our main composition viewport. So now we can drag the new point to the bottom, and we go to our Rasengan, turn that back on, and now we change this little drop down menu right here. It's the parent menu. So if I parent this to my new point, that means wherever my new point moves, my Rasengan will follow. So now if we watch it, just say from here, we can see as the hand's moving, the Rasengan follows. Alright, so now this isn't looking like it did in my first tutorial, and the reason for that is because I added an extra displacement modifier and I duplicated it. So what we can do is we go to distort, bulge, and just bring that in, duplicate it, and delete it off the first one. So now we have two. That's pretty bright, but we're going to change the blending mode to screen on one of these. Actually, let's do it to both. That takes it down, and then we'll go to our one with the bulge, change the radius to bring it back down. And now we're going to bring up the bulge to maybe 2. Just bring that down a little bit because it's off center. And let's go to our transform and rotate this 90 degrees just so we have some variety. Let's just move that to there. Alright, so there we go. Now my hand isn't as blue as the video. Alright, so let me get the video for you guys right here. So basically, if I can, my hand's quite blue right here, right? And so what we want is to get a little bit more of that, because it's pretty white right here. So we'll go to my hand, we'll go to the glow, and we're going to turn the intensity up, and we're going to turn the radius up. So that'll help quite a bit. Now, as you can see, my hand is kind of getting quite an outline right there, which I don't really like. I mean, if you like it, you can keep it, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to bring that up a little bit more so that it kind of makes it darker around the edges. So now we have this bit right here, and if we go like that, alright, so it looks like our Rasengan starts even before the hand is visible, which is not what we want. So we're going to take both of these and we're going to bring them forward a little bit so they start a little bit later, right about there. Now we're going to hit the preview button, and there is what we have. Now that is looking a lot better. Now all you need to do is get the sound effect and add it, and there is your Rasengan. Now the sound effect I just downloaded off the internet. I just basically Googled Rasengan SFX and got a free one off of some website. So there's so many of them. There are just many different ones. One with the voice, one without the voice, you know, all this lovely stuff. But that's basically your Rasengan right there. Now we're going to work on the Rasengan Shurikan. Now for this, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to Google Shurikan and go to images and then download one that looks like this. So this is what it looks like. I saved the image to my pictures folder, and now I'm going to open it up in HitFilm Express. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this in, put it on top, and I am going to scale it up. Hold shift when you're scaling so that it kind of keeps it from getting all squiggly, you know. Bring it up to something like that. Now what you want to do is you go to get a luminance effect, drop that onto there, and that doesn't really do what we want at the moment, but if I click key out brighter and bring up the threshold, this is what we have left. Now we're going to go to color correction. We're going to add a levels histogram. You could do this with brightness and contrast or exposure, but I personally prefer the levels histogram. And we're just going to take the blacks and bring that up to make this white. Now we are going to add a glow effect to this shuriken. So we are going to lights and flares. Why can't I find it? It's right in front of me, right there. Go to glow, put it on the shuriken, and it looks weird, but you just go and click the screen, change it to add, and that'll fix everything. Now what you want to do is you want to take the threshold, turn that down, take the radius down a little bit and turn up the intensity so that it kind of gives it a soft edge. Now we have all that done. We have our shuriken, and to line it up, give it an angle, because right now it's kind of flat, right? So what we want to do is we put it in the center of our Rasengan, which will now be the Rasengan Shuriken because we have finished. So let's just rename these for the sake of the tutorial. And Shuriken N. All right. So now what we want to do, that's bothering me. All right. Neat and tidy. What we want to do now is click this square right here, checkered box, change it from 2D to 3D plane. You'll get this that pops up, and hit yes. Now that'll bring a camera layer into your scene, and you'll get like these weird lines. Just don't mind that. That won't be in the render at the end. And what you want to do is drag this in between your two. Actually, no, just leave it there. What you want to do is you go to Controls, Transform, and you change the orientation to bring it just like that. Now, I got a lot of comments in the video that I made that it was too small, and I agree it was too small. It was way too small. But due to the footage I had, having it too big, you wouldn't be able to see it properly. So I'm going to make it a little bit bigger in this one, but we can't have it too big. So I'm going to change the scale, bring that up. Let's have it to something like that. And what we can do is we go to our orientation on the Z, and this is it right here. So we can spin that. That's how it is. Hit Control Z to bring that back. Let's just make this a little bit more flat like that. Now what we want to do is we want to go to the beginning of our comp. Everything will be off. That's fine except for that. Now we want to click rotation here. We don't want to rotate this. We want to rotate this one. And now we go all the way to the end and set it to something like 300. Actually, let's just do 100 for now. We can change it if we need to. So we make sure it's animated because we hit that button, change it to 100, and what that does is it spins 360 degrees 100 times over the course of this timeline. So over the course of 10 seconds. And now if we just preview that, we can see it spinning, right? And it's not centered properly. So let's just click on that. Sometimes you don't see your arrows here if there's a preview. So just turn one of them, anything on and off, and that gets rid of the preview and brings back your options. Put that in the center, and let's parent that to our new point. So right now it's spinning, and it's in front of our Rasengan, and that doesn't look too good. Also, our Rasengan is blue, and for it to be the Rasengan Shuriken, it needs to be white. So we are going to go to our Rasengan Shuriken, and we're going to add hue, saturation, and lightness effect. You know what? Let's add a grade layer so that we don't have to add it 3 times. Grade layer, drop it onto there, and we're just going to take the saturation and drop it down. So now it's white. So we can add keep a little bit of blue in there, but that's what we're going for. So we have a problem here. And our problem is that our Shuriken is on this whole time, which it only should, like in my video, it started, oh, you've already seen the video. In my video, it started later. So we're going to start it right about, let's say, 2 seconds into our video. So we're going to go here, we're going to go to our Shuriken, and we're going to put a keyframe on the scale. Now we're going to go back half a second, and we are going to change the scale to 0. And now we can come here to the beginning, and we can get a preview of our video so far. So there we have it, the Rasengan, and then it's going to slowly turn into the Shuriken right there. So that's what we're looking for. All right, I said I was gonna make it bigger, and that's actually smaller than my previous one, but let's see what it looks like so far. So that's what we have so far. Now what we can do, I don't know how much this will affect it, if we put on the motion blur for the shuriken. That's, yeah, it's spinning so fast that's a little too much, so probably not the best thing. Let's just scale this up. Now we can't just scale it anywhere because we made it a keyframe. We have to go to that keyframe before, because you're going to scale it like way up right here, and then what's going to happen is it's going to start small, get big, and then go back small because you have this keyframe here. So you can go to this last keyframe, double click on it to move your playhead there, and we're going to set this to say 1000. So that's pretty good. Now it's also looking a little bit like see-through or small. There aren't enough chakra particles. So what we can do, let's basically go to our media again, take our Rasengan and bring it back to the top here, and we're going to change the blend mode to add, and we're going to just put it on top of everything. We're going to scale it up, and then we are going to parent it, sorry, not the camera, the Rasengan. We're going to parent it to the new point. And there we go. Now, if we watch it, starts, lights up the hand, and then after a little bit, the shuriken comes out, which will be about now. Now, depending on your computer specs, this preview could take forever or it could be super fast, you know. And if you want that to go faster, just go to your options up here and change the playback quality from final to draft or quick or playback resolution, and pause quality. Just change that like I said before. But so far, this is what we got. Now, that looks really good, but I don't like this huge glowing ball. It's a little too much glowing for me. So that came in with our last Rasengan that we put. It came in too much. That's fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my favorite effect, which is the levels histogram. And what we're going to do is we are going to take this middle slot and just drag it up. And that'll like crush the whites a little bit. So that's what we're looking for. And now for the sound effect, it's basically the same thing. You Google it and it's right there. There's tons of them to choose from. And I actually was really like, I was about to put the sound effect, you know, with the whole. Rasengan! And I don't know. I didn't. But maybe in my next one, I'll do something like that. So these are the tutorials and how to do it. I hope you enjoyed it. This is my first tutorial, so I am not too good at this kind of thing just yet, but I'm hoping to make a lot more content with the tutorials for it, so I will get better. Any comments will be appreciated, and thank you for all the followers and likes and views.